Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan, which is incredible. I need to consider a name change because I've not really moaned for about 2 days. Anyway, the topic of this 10-minute moan is the reaction by Sarwar of the Scottish Labour Party to recent events and him now going to put forward a motion for a confidence vote in the entire Scottish Government. Now, before I start, if you want to support the channel, there's loads of things you can do. You can become a member, you can subscribe, but the far easiest thing to do is just click a thumbs up in the video anytime you see one. It does wonders for our reach. Thanks. Now, yesterday, obviously, bit of my day started off with the SNP government, i.e. HUMZA, ditching the Greens, kicking them out of cabinet and ripping up the Butte House agreement, and bedlam ensued. During First Minister's questions, first up to ask him some questions was the Tory leader, who said that he was going to table a motion of no confidence in HUMZA himself as First Minister. And then yesterday was spent people, saying that would support it and who wouldn't. And it looks as if Regan of Alba could hold the casting vote on the decision in that one. However, this morning, ANAS Sarwar has come out with a top trumps card and said, bang, I'll beat that. He is now going to, or has already tabled a motion for no confidence in the entire government. Now, what's the difference? Well, the difference is quite substantial. If you get a vote of no confidence passed on the First Minister, he's obliged to stand down, although not legally committed, which is a bit bizarre. However, he would normally stand down. His party would put forward an option for the next First Minister. Indeed, anybody in Parliament could put forward a name for the next First Minister, but it's more likely be the government normally that would do that. And in normal circumstances, they have a majority. Whoever they put up wins the vote. You've got a First Minister. They're now in a minority government. So, if they put forward a replacement for HUMZA and it's not accepted by the actual Parliament, by a majority, and they have 28 days to find a suitable candidate that's acceptable to the Parliament, then in 28 days, if none's found, we go into a general election. However, when you put a vote of no confidence for an entire government, if that reaches a simple majority, then that automatically triggers an election. So what Sarwar's done is actually a bigger deal than what Douglas Ross done yesterday, because both could lead to an election, but if Sarwar's vote gets through and carried, it's an immediate thing. The SNP don't get any second chances to try and put up a First Minister that may or may not be acceptable to the rest of the Parliament. Now, it's quite intriguing because last night I was on a couple of these, Twitter spaces, I believe they're called, and they're quite new to me, where I noticed a few that were discussing the current situation in Scottish politics. So I was in and out a couple of these rooms, and they're fantastic. It's well worth a look if you've never been involved in them before. And in one of them, there were a few people asking questions about, what happens with these votes of confidence, and there was a lot of, discussion about that. And one guy was talking about the chances of the government getting voted out. And I was saying, look, that could happen if you've had awarded the confidence vote on the whole government and not just an individual minister. And we discussed that. And I said, well, there's two things could happen here. At that point, nobody had seen Douglas Ross's actual motion, which could have changed his mind and submitted one for the whole government. Or I'd suggested last night in one of the spaces that Labour could support the Tory one and also submit their own, which could include the full government. So when I woke up this morning and was trolling about, sniffing about the news as I do of a morning, I was not really that surprised to find that the Labour Party under Sarwar have submitted such a motion. This one's even bigger because it would bring on an election immediately, whereas the other one could bring on an election, but obviously with potentially 28 days before that could happen. And does that change the likelihood of the motion passing or failing? And I think it's knife-edge stuff. What the other parties, and including Alba in this, because they could be the kingmakers here, and certainly the Greens could, they have to consider, and probably Lib Dems, because they've only got 4 MSPs at present. But the parties with smaller amount of MSPs in Holyrood need to consider just one simple question. And that is, could we get more MSPs than we have just now if there was to be a snap election? Now, the kingmaker in the whole thing could be Alba. And people are going, oh, but, Ash Regan's wrote a letter and she's doing this. And, well, yeah, she has asked for clarity on the future of the SNP's government, which could be clever because, depending on the response you get, could just justify her, to her, and those who seek independence not to hate her should she back the Tory motion, or indeed the New Labour one. So this might just be a bit of showboating from her, because you've got to remember a couple of things, well, 3 things about the whole Ash Regan question. 1, HUMZA wasn't very nice to her when she left. 2, the Alba party is run by Alex Salmon, who, unless you lived in the moon for the last few years, you'll remember that he was forced to go to court to defend an idea pushed by the SNP government that he had somehow sexually abused or otherwise people in there attempted to get him to go to jail. And I don't think anybody who's watched Salmon over the last few months will disagree with my thoughts that he's not really forgiven him for that. Now, he runs the party. And the third thing is, the third point, as I've already suggested, if he and Alba think that they could get more MSPs than they have just now, which is 1, by going for a snap election, then why wouldn't they support either or both of these motions? So I'm unsure as to which motion's more risk of being successful. It'd probably be the confidence vote in HUMZA, because there's nothing to suggest that every SNP MSP would actually support HUMZA on that. People could abstain. That throws a span on the works. But if you're going for a vote of no confidence in the entire government, that would be quite difficult for any SNP MSP to support. So it'd be a hard one for them to support the HUMZA one, but it would just be ridiculous to expect them to support a full government one. So I think it could be more likely that the HUMZA one was successful. However, with the SNP, with Alba and the Lib Dems and the Greens, they have got the opportunity to vote no confidence in the whole government, which would in turn immediately call for an election. And they just have to ask themselves a simple question. What would be best for them? To run with their 1 in terms of Alba, their 4 in terms of the Lib Dems, or the, I think, 7 that the Greens have got. Could they increase those numbers by having an election today? And I actually think the answer is yes for each of those 3 parties. Genuinely. I don't think they'd be worse off, put it that way. And I think because of the regional list thing that we have up here in Scotland, I think it's perfectly easy for Alba, at least, to expect to get more than 1 seat, because there's a lot of people who still fancy independence, but they just don't like the SNP right now. So they need a home, they need somewhere to vote, and they're hardly likely going to vote for what they term as a unionist party. So I think they could be big beneficiaries of a snap election. Lib Dems probably fancy getting more than 4, and the Greens, for some reason, they think they're going to take loads of SNP votes, so why wouldn't they want to support this? So it's going to be an interesting few days, and these votes will probably not happen until next week. And who knows, potentially Sarwar and Ross have a chat and their parties decide that instead of putting 2 motions, they might pull one and just go for one and super support each other. I don't know. But I would like to see them both go through, because it would just be interesting. It's going to be a fascinating few days in Scottish politics, and it's been fun, especially the last 24 hours. So, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've not already done so before, please consider subscribing. But as I say at the end of all my videos, unless you're HUMZA YOUSAF, the SNP, or the dwindling number of cult members, everybody else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.